At first blush, it isn't easy being Izuku Midoriya. You know, because Midori is the Japanese word for green, and his hair's green never mind. I'm Seaniccus, and these are my unscripted, unhinged thoughts on My Hero Academia. Why am I taking a look at a show that's already like over a year old? Blame my buddy Rogerspace. We know each other through old connections as Nintendo bloggers, but these days he reviews a ton of anime and manga on YouTube. And I've been seeing him post about this show for like a year, and I just have to know what's up. If you're looking for some crazy, enthusiastic, in-depth looks at One Piece, Attack on Titan, One Punch Man, Nintendo stuff, and this show, go check out his channel on YouTube. He does ongoing coverage of a ton of series like this. As for me, I'm just here to take a quick look at the first 8 episodes. Because to be honest, this show really wasn't what I expected it to be. And heads up, minor spoilers. I honestly didn't expect a ton out of this show. Just the typical shonen high school butt formula. You know what I mean. High school, but everybody's a witch. Or high school, but it's also the most competitive culinary academy in the world.僕のヒーローアカデミアdoes follow that formula, but it didn't do it in quite the way I expected. Specifically, the first episode gave me the completely wrong idea about the premise. This series takes place in a world just like ours, except for 80% of the world's population has a quirk, or some sort of superpower. For a lot of people, these powers are as simple as being able to just draw things to their hands. But others have super strength or can turn into giant monsters. This has created a world where there's super-powered criminals running around, and superheroes have just sort of naturally become part of society. This means kids don't want to grow up to be firefighters or policemen, they want to grow up to be superheroes. And our protagonist Izuku Midoriya is no exception, except for the fact that he's part of the 20% that doesn't have a quirk. Despite all his hopes and dreams, Midoriya has no superpowers to speak of. Just a love for heroes, a dedication to become one, and a notebook filled with all the research he's done watching battles over the years. To me, this setup seemed obvious. This is a Batman story, I thought. An average dude who's going to overcome all the odds and become a hero despite the fact that he has no powers. It seemed a little predictable, but I was kinda hyped. The first episode was full of clues like this, people telling him he couldn't do it, him hoping his whole life that someone would tell him he could be a hero. And halfway through the episode, he encounters the greatest hero of the world, Captain Super America Man. Well, actually his name's All Might. This is the man Midoriya has looked up to his entire life, his idol, and he just saved him. And Midoriya spent his whole life asking people if he could be a hero despite not having a quirk, and they've all told him no, but here, in front of him, his greatest hero surely will tell him something differently. The hope of the world will tell him that yes, he can be a hero if he tries hard enough, even if he doesn't have powers. Except that's not how it goes. All Might tells him that it's dangerous and heroes risk their lives, and he's not ready to just tell him he can be a hero without a power. And yeah, Midoriya is devastated, but this tied into what I thought the show was. This was going to be him overcoming everyone's expectations. And as we headed into the next episode, I was sure that's what was going to happen. The now deflated Izuku is standing in the crowd watching his childhood friend totally get destroyed by these monsters. And when no one else is rushing forward to help, he breaks through the crowd and rushes forward. He's probably the only person in the crowd without a quirk, and he's the only one rushing forward to help. There he is, about to prove that he can be a hero, even if he doesn't have powers. Except he totally fails. And at this point, I still thought this show was going to go the Batman route, but it didn't. When All Might saw that Midoriya had heart, he caught up with him later and told him I was wrong. You can be a hero, but you're gonna need superpowers. Even as the plot moves on and Midoriya is told that he can inherit All Might's powers, I thought this was all gonna be a ruse. All Might trains him for 10 months, makes him clear a beach, and hone his body into, muscle. And I thought for sure he was going to say, I'm ready to accept your power now, and All Might was going to say, there was no power. The power was in you all along. But no, he totally doesn't. He gives the dude a piece of his hair and says, hey, eat this and you'll get superpowers. This is really weird to me because high school boy getting superpowers is so standard anime, but the show worked so hard to convince me that that wasn't what was gonna happen. And I both hate and love that, I think. Because yeah, the show is totally following into standard anime tropes, and all the story turns are in a way predictable, but before making that predictable turn, it convinced me of a different option. And to be honest, I'm a little glad it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, because the world it builds is so much more brutal that I don't think it's possible that this one powerless guy could outthink his way around all the powers and monsters that he faces as the series goes on. And just because the general plot here was more predictable than I might have thought, doesn't mean that treats that trope in a predictable way. For instance, Midoriya has to go through entrance exams to get into the high school of his choice, which is, the best superhero high school in the country. And now that he has All Might superpowers of ultra strength and jumping or whatever they are, it's really kinda not clear. He'll be a shoo-in, right? Well, not really. Not only is Midoriya extremely unsure of himself, but he has no idea how to use his powers, having only received them hours before the opening exam started and not having any time to test them out. And when he does finally use them to save another student from a giant robot thing, he finds that he has absolutely no control out of them. Jumping in the air and punching a robot in the face broke 3 of his limbs. Both legs for the power of the leap, and his right arm for over-punching. This is great because it takes the character from being like this Mary Sue God type to someone who still has to struggle and learn and evolve despite being given the greatest power in the world. It's a cool idea that, yeah, you could get Superman's powers overnight, but even if you could, you probably wouldn't know how to use them, and you might even hurt yourself in the process of figuring it out. And so far in the first 8 episodes, managing this is not only one of the most interesting parts of the show, but it's also the character's main challenge. To get through a fitness test at school, he needs to figure out how to throw a ball far enough without breaking his arm to impress the teacher, and still have enough stamina and uninjured body left over to complete the rest of the tests. In a practical battle against other students, he knows he needs to be able to defeat his enemies and accomplish the goal without killing the other students because he can't control the strength of his punch, or disabling himself because he knows he'll hurt himself in the process of using his powers. A lot of the show does fall into standard anime tropes. His childhood friend is his rival, for instance, and the class has your standard goofy characters, and your standard love interest, and your standard uptight class representative. But it kind of treats each of these a little bit differently. Well, not really the love interest, but his relationship with his childhood friend is more complex than most of these shonen manga usually have. It's clear Midoriya never really had any friends growing up, and considered this one kid to be one of his best friends, or at least one of the kids he looked up to the most. But this kid hates him. Midoriya never developed powers, so he's subhuman to him, and he doesn't matter. And now that he's this kid that he doesn't care about is challenging him and may become a great hero, they have this incredibly fierce competition. But it's not like the friendly competition you usually get between like a Ranma and a Ryoga. It's something much more intense. So much more intense that it makes you wonder if the rival will still stay a hero and be on the good side at the end of the series. Something you don't normally worry about with a lot of these rivalries and these type of manga. Yeah, their rivals are always contentious. You never really worry about them turning into a bad guy. But with this guy, you do. It's definitely not a perfect show, though. It's kind of walking a weird line between silly and goofy and really serious. To the extent where you can have really funny scenes right next to just Midoriya bawling his eyes out. In fact, there's way too much crying in this show. And it's not that strong emotions aren't important or can't work in anime, it just doesn't seem to balance here. With only 8 episodes in, I'm way too early in this show to really make a final judgment call or talk about the future episodes or the ongoing. But if you have a friend like Roger who won't stop tweeting about this show every couple of weeks, go ahead and check it out. I really enjoyed watching the first 8, and if you're into action anime at all, it's probably worth your time. And hey, didn't I say this was a new show for gaming? Well, I don't really play a new game every week, so First Blush is going to be about a lot of things, but I'll try and have more games in the future. Or whatever you guys want. That's what the comment section below is for. If you have comments, suggestions, or different things you want me to review on this show, let me know. I'll probably do it. In the meantime, don't forget to like or subscribe if you want to do that, or click on some of these extra videos that are floating around on screen. Some of them are pretty good. That's it. Until next time, take it easy, Internet. I'm gonna go watch more anime.